Hey everybody, this is Don with Living Chronically, a channel dedicated to staying positive and motivated while living with chronic conditions. Today's topic of conversation is motivation. What do I mean by it, and what does that look like? I have my trusty notes here, so as always, if I'm looking at them, hopefully that won't be too disruptive. Hopefully I won't have to look at them very often. So when I'm talking about motivation, right, I think a lot of us already understand motivation. It's the stuff we want to do or accomplish or obtain, milestones we want to reach, experiences we want to have, stuff we want to buy, whatever, right? There's a lot of different kinds of motivations in the world, but ultimately they are goals that we wish to reach. Generally, I think motivations are good, providing we're not hurting ourselves or somebody else in the process. So if that is the case, if you look at your motivations and you see pain in someone else or pain in yourself as a result of those motivations, I think the healthy thing to do, the proper thing to do, is to reevaluate what you're doing and approach it from a different way, because obviously you don't want to be doing that because you're not doing yourself or anybody else any good in that way. Having said that, if your goals are generally not hurting anybody else or yourself, then have at them. Having said that, there is definitely a healthy and unhealthy relationship that we can have with motivation, with our goals, with our dreams, with our milestones. Now, the best example I can think of is what I went through when my diagnosis came back as chronic pain. At that point, my motivation became entirely, how do I get back to where I was before I was diagnosed? How do I get back to that stage in life when I could do things without having to worry about this situation? And what would I need to do that? And the problem is that when we're dealing with chronic situations like this, when we're dealing with chronic conditions, the likelihood of getting to a point where that chronic condition is gone, completely gone, it's not generally realistic. It's not that it can't be done, and for anyone who has accomplished that, well done. I mean, you have my respect and my yeah. But in terms of the majority of us where that isn't an option, I think it's unhealthy to think of these goals as an all or nothing thing. So if we go back to my example of wanting to get back to where I was before I got diagnosed and what I would need to do that, I spent a lot of time researching supplements, medications, exercises, stretches, basically looking for that one miracle that was going to get me back to being healthy. And I didn't want to accept anything other than that goal. I didn't want to accept anything other than that milestone. And the problem is that the longer I spent doing that, the more effort I expended in chasing that remote dream, that remote goal, and the more failure I had along the way, the worse I felt. I kept having these problems. I would have some hope. I would feel good for a day or two. The reality of the situation would set in. Whatever I was doing wasn't working as well as that I hoped it would. And then I'd go back into that spiral of never-ending thought and catastrophic thinking of, well, this isn't going to work. I need to move on to the next thing. And so on and so forth, always, going deeper and deeper into that despairing mindset. And what I was missing along that way was that while nothing worked completely, some things worked a little bit. And if I stacked all those things together, I actually would have had a better result than just abandoning them and trying something else again and again and again. So that's what I mean by having an all or nothing relationship with our goals, with our milestones, with our ideal scenarios. I don't think it's very healthy to put all of our eggs in one basket like that, because anytime we have a setback, anytime we suffer some kind of a hindrance or we hit a wall, that can really just destroy our house of cards, because we've built everything on one specific idea. And if that's a huge idea that's off in the distance, we don't really have a lot of control over that. and the likelihood of having a setback, is much higher, as is the likelihood of failure, because the harder something is to attain, the further away it is from you, the less likely it is you're going to reach that goal in a reasonable amount of time. It's not that you're not going to reach it. It's just, if you're looking off into the distance, that's a lot of distance to cover. I think the best example I can think of is like, okay, so let's say you want to obtain $1 million, right? You have $0 right now, you want to get $1 million. And if you go from 0 to 1 million, that gap, and nothing else will do, that is not going to be a fun ride. But if you say, okay, I'm at 0 right now, my first goal is 100. My second goal is 200. My third goal is 300, and so forth. 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 10,000, 20,000, 30,000. You set these little milestones along the way, and all of a sudden you realize each time you hit one of those milestones, hey, I feel pretty good. That's a nice feeling. And that is what I'm aiming for. That's what I think we should all be aiming for, is these little manageable milestones along the way to the bigger milestones, which give us the confidence and that feeling of accomplishment as we go, because that is what's going to give us the strength and the armor against all of the bad things that happen and get us back on our feet faster. So what do I mean by small or little steps, small milestones? I like to call these things short-term goals. And these are the things that I can do on a day-to-day basis when I'm feeling at my worst, so that I can take at least some control over my life, my well-being, my sense of independence, right? They're all simple things. Getting up in the morning, getting something to eat, getting dressed, making sure that I keep myself and the house clean, making sure that I tell my wife that I love her and that I appreciate the help that she offers me. Just simple things. Doing some stretches, doing a little bit of physio, doing a little bit of exercise. Just, again, nothing big, nothing complicated, basic stuff that keeps me focused on myself and feeling good, and the people around me, and making sure they don't feel bad as a result of me feeling bad. It's not always easy. I don't always hit them all, but the more that I hit on a day-to-day basis, the better I feel overall, and the less likely it is that I'm going to wallow in that feeling of helplessness and despair when I have a flare-up of my condition. So again, the short-term stuff is the little things you can do on a day-to-day basis to build your confidence and to build your sense of accomplishment, and over time make yourself feel a little bit better, both mentally and hopefully physically, because if your treatment plan is doing what it's supposed to do, over time, the flare-up fades and you get back to normal life. And I found that in my situation, the more I focus on these little things, the faster that happens, the less trouble I have along the way, and the less mental strain I experience throughout that process. After I've done enough of those short-term goals, then I can start working on the medium-term goals, right? So if all of the short-term goals that I described were sort of just around the home and just around the people that I care about that are like in my life on a day-to-day basis, the medium-term stuff, or the medium-sized goals, are things like going out of the house for a walk, going on a hike, trying a new activity, getting over a fear, right? Things that are bigger and more complicated, that take a little bit more planning, take a little bit more time, a little more effort, but are still doable and are sort of a natural progression of the steps that I've been taking already. And it's important to remember when you're doing these things, not to push too hard. And if you do suffer a setback during this process, to accept that setback for what it is, that it's just a setback. It's not a door slamming shut. It's just a chance or an opportunity to reevaluate and potentially change your approach, right? Because again, if you're looking at this from a perspective of not having an all or nothing viewpoint, then failure isn't failure. It's just a setback, and you can alter your approach. You can go around that situation. You can go around that problem. You can go over it. You can go under it. You can tackle it a different way. You can bring some support, whatever it is. You can get over that thing, and then you can keep going along towards your ultimate goal. So by doing these things repeatedly and by practicing these motivations, these small and medium term things, we're building a foundation, right? So I look at it like a staircase. So each time I do one of these daily tasks, I'm taking one little step up. Each time I'm doing one of these medium steps, I'm doing another little step up. And I'm building this staircase and going up and down it over and over and over again. And each time I add a step, I get a little bit higher, a little bit closer to those long-term goals. Each time I build that confidence up, I armor myself so that if I trip and fall, I get back up and I keep climbing much easier than if I didn't armor myself, or if I didn't prepare myself with all these little steps. Like if they were huge steps, you trip on a huge step, the fall is much bigger. If you have all these little steps in between, the fall is much smaller. More chance you're going to catch yourself before you go all the way down. That's also one of those nice little bonus points. But as I build this staircase and I keep going up and down it and strengthen myself as I do these things, right? Over time, what I found is I'll look back, I'll look down, and I will see how far I've come and realize I've climbed a hill, or I've started to climb a mountain, right? The distance between base level and where I'm at just keeps increasing, and I just keep getting higher and higher and higher, and I just feel better and better and better. And I'm hopeful that this approach can help you as well, because that's what this channel is about. It's about making the information, making the ideas, the strategies available so that you can apply them in some way to your own situation. All right, I think that's enough out of me for now. I have had a thought while making these previous two videos, the first one on positivity and this one on motivation, that there needs to be a third one on resilience, because if positivity is the process by which we continue forward towards a better life, and motivation are the things that we are focused on as that better life, then resilience is the strength we need within ourselves to actually do those things. So I'm going to prepare a video on that, and that'll come up soon. And then down the line, I think another helpful video might be the process I go through, the planning mechanisms that I use, the planning strategies that I use to actually plot out how I'm going to get to my short and medium term goals and how I'm going to get to my long term goals. If you think that'd be a good video, please let me know in the comments. If you have any issues or comments with this video, please also let me know in the comments. I look forward to seeing you next time. And until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and I believe in you. Bye for now.